I'm not missing anything. But no, I need to make that call, and so they know that I'm still coming.
You want to go on tape first, or
I'm sorry?
Can we get this knocked out first? Do you need to call him right now? Are you sure?
Let's do it. Yep. No, let's do it. I mean, the phone will just ring. That's not
7/29/08, 12:38 p.m. Corporal Eric Edwards, Orange County Sheriff's Office, sitting in the room with
Detective Mike Erickson at Orange County Sheriff's Office.
And can you state your full name for me, sir?
Lee Alexander Anthony.
Lee has come here voluntarily today to help us with our timeline, to ratchet down some questions that we had, and to bring up some issues that he himself has identified. Lee, what I'd like to do, is that your understanding you're here freely and voluntarily?
Absolutely.
Okay. We did a pre-interview. We went over some calendar books. You brought some things to our attention that you discovered. I made some notes, and I'd like to go through those notes. I've made some highlighted points before we get to the calendar book. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to start with number 8. You gave a very long description about July 15th, when you get a phone call from your dad asking you to go to your house. Can you tell me that storyline again, and I'll work through the notes that I took.
Absolutely. My father called me. It had to be before 8 o'clock, and told me that, long story, but I'm worried about your mother. Can you please go to the house? I want you to check on her. Okay. So after getting that call, I was at my mom's house within 5 minutes. When I arrived, go through the garage door like I typically do. There was the only vehicle in there was the vehicle driven by my sister, the white Pontiac. The trunk was open. The windows were rolled down to what I assume ventilate the horrible smell that I had just smelled for the first time, and went inside the house to see if anybody was there. Nobody was.
Smell filled up the garage.
Yeah, it hits you like a wave. It was whatever it was very potent.
Okay.
Now, obviously no one was at the residence when I got there. I waited a few moments, got very excited, and I called my mother to see what was going on. And she told me, I'm 30 seconds away from pulling in. I've got your sister in the car. So I said, okay. I met them outside in the driveway as they were pulling in. When my sister and my mother get out of the vehicle, it's very obvious to me that they had been at least yelling back and forth with each other. My sister conveyed something to the extent of, you won't even listen to me, and why do I even bother? My mother, when I'm trying to ask her what's going on, she just says, your sister knows where Caylee is and she won't take her to me. Or she won't take me to her, sorry. And then she continues to say, I'm going to call the police, and you need to talk to your sister. So Casey immediately went inside, sat in on her bed, and I stood in her doorway, was trying to be a mediator from my mother, who was in the living room, and my sister was in her room, trying to mediate the situation to, frankly, not have the police being called on my sister, because it didn't make any sense to me why she'd want to go through that unnecessarily. For what seemed to be the better part of 30 or 45 minutes, I tried my best to stall my mom and get through to my sister that, as she maintained, I know where Caylee is. She's with the nanny, and she's...
Have you ever seen this nanny?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen your sister field a phone call from the nanny or make a phone call to the nanny?
No, sir.
Okay. And did she refer to her by any other name than nanny?
No.
Because I've heard Zanny the nanny and all kinds of... But I've never heard...
I've actually never heard the name Zenaida until when she told that to the first responding officer.
That's the first time in your life.
That's the first time I've ever heard the name Zenaida.
Okay.
I've always just heard nanny, specifically N, not Z, N. Casey maintained that Caylee's at the nanny's house. She's sleeping. I don't want to take her out of, what's been normal for her lately. We can go get her in the morning. I don't want to interrupt her. And frankly, it didn't make a lot of sense to me because it had been, at that time, weeks that my mother had not been able to. She hadn't seen even my sister. She hadn't talked to Caylee. While she's had communication with Casey, she's not had any communication with Caylee. And my mother was extremely concerned because of the nature of how we were notified about the car, and that my sister even claimed that she was out of the city when she wasn't. That my mother is saying, okay, if you weren't where you were, how do I know where Caylee is, where you say that she's been? Mm-hmm. So she was pretty much saying, you're going to have to prove it to me. And I don't blame her for that. So I was trying to facilitate other options to my sister by saying, I will go. Tell me where I can go to see Caylee myself. I'll go for 5 minutes. I'll do it your way. I'll go and just make sure that she's okay. I even offered to have my roommate, a good friend of mine, a good friend of ours, go to verify that she's okay. And my sister maintained that, Mom won't allow it to happen, and while my mother continued in the background to say, that's unacceptable, I want her here, I want her home, I don't want just to see her, I want to hold her, I want her to be here. So I didn't really force that issue very much longer. Until my sister started saying things like, my mother would walk out of the room periodically. Every 10-15 minutes it seemed like, because she's just getting frustrated. She's go outside, I would think, trying to clear her head, because I know she wasn't calling at that point, but she's kind of go out there trying to clear her head is what I would
pissed.
Take from it. Right.
Yeah.
So every time my mother would go outside, I'd try to ask something to my sister that maybe she wouldn't feel comfortable saying in front of my mom. Asking what's going on, what's the deal. She still maintained everything, but she would say, that's when she opened up to me and said, Mom has thrown it in my face many times before that I'm an unfit mother, and maybe she's right, maybe I am. She offered up to me for the first time that my mother has said to my sister that even though Caylee's been the best thing and the best mistake, that she was indeed a mistake, that she was Casey's mistake.
Now, Casey's telling you that Mom said this to her.
To Casey, yes. But she did not give me any indication on, was there any period of time when this happened. I mean, she didn't even convey it in a way where it would have necessarily meant that it was recent compared to a year ago, a month ago, whatever. I mean, I couldn't figure that out. That wasn't.
It almost seemed like an overall theme that she's carrying with her, that her mother was disappointed in her.
Right.
Because of...
Or maybe not feel like Casey is being the mother that she should be towards Caylee.
Okay.
Which I know Casey does not provide for that child. She provides love and good parenting as far as raising her. However, monetarily and providing her with food and toys and shelter and things like that.
Grandparents.
Exactly. That's never been my sister, and she knows that. My sister knows that. But my sister...
So it's almost a little bit of a burden fitting into her social life maybe, but she still loves her enough to spend time with her, but doesn't have the financial means to provide the things to her that she may if she had the money.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that's just the...
Many people across this country in that same position.
Absolutely. I think that's the whole young mother type of scenario. I mean, you don't have that established career and that established funds. I mean, she's still living at home. She's always lived at home. She's never lived away from the house any more than a vacation, like 3 days or a week at the most.
This is the longest...
Absolutely. This is the longest that she's been away from the residence.
Okay.
My sister or Caylee.
You said the sister told you that because I'm a spiteful bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And did she yell that so Mom could hear it, or she just whispered that to you, or what was
She didn't whisper it. She didn't also say it necessarily, make it a point to say it as loud so my mom can hear it. However, I think she realized that even